What is up, YouTube? How's everybody out there doing today? Mitch?
Doing great.
Mitch is doing great, guys. So we have the 17 ZL1 back up on the lift here. And yes, the fender's off of it. I know you guys are probably wondering what the heck is the fender doing off of this vehicle. Well, we're going to show you here in a minute. All right, guys, before we do get this video started, I am going to do a merch plug because it's been a while. I have these gray mechanic t-shirts. I have hats, beanies, I've got hoodies. Even though winter's almost over, I've got hoodies for sale. You can buy any one of them. Email me at diabloformula@hotmail.com. I also have a Teespring link below and a Motoluke key tag link below as well in the description. Go check that out, guys, if you're interested in buying any of that merch. We're going to talk about how many freaking bolts and nuts and screws, look at all these things, go into putting the inner fender liner on these ZL1s and all of the under plastics that go a part of these ZL1s. It is honestly ridiculous. So we have a lot of plastic pieces here. We have that one. We have these felt bottoms which go on. We have these here, and I'll show you where these go basically. These guys sit up in the channel like that. Like right just like that. So they sit up in there, you bolt them on first, and then the felt pieces go on afterwards. I think, if I remember correctly, this whole contraption right here goes up front here. If I remember correctly, yeah, because that goes there. That one goes there, right there, like that. Okay, here we go. That's how that goes on. That goes in the front like so, and gets bolted in there in that area. And then you have all these freaking like plastic pieces, like all these weird plastic pieces that get bolted into different areas and different positions. It's just ridiculous. But in order to do that, you have literally a shit ton of bolts. There's probably like 20 of these little screws, 30 or 40 of these little screws. You got more of these. I mean, there's so much that goes in the underbelly of this vehicle for I guess for aerodynamic purposes. It's just ridiculous. This is a firewall plug. We're running some wires through a firewall. We had to have that out. But I just wanted to show you guys that. It's ridiculous how much it takes to put these things together. Oh, and I found my little purple clip. I was looking for that earlier. Now let's get talking about why this fender's off. All right, guys, let's talk about... Mitch is over there taking the other wheel off the other side because we need to put these inner fenders in. We have a whole bunch of other little stuff that we have to do before we put the inner fender. Oh my God!
Sorry.
It's okay. So we got our plastic, some of our plastics bolted up here ahead of time, so we got that taken care of. Just to kind of get it out of the way. You have all types of coolers inside these ZL1s. You have a trans cooler, and these are heat exchangers and more heat exchangers and more heat exchangers. And go ahead, buddy. There we go. I know. All right. So the reason why we have this fender off is because obviously this car is getting an Alky Control meth kit. And you know, this is the first time I've ever put an Alky Control meth kit on a 6th gen Camaro. And I know this is going to be helpful to some of you guys out there that are working on these ZL1s or the 6th gen SSs that want to run meth. And you're probably wondering, hey, where the heck can I put this meth pump? Well, I called Julio up at Alky Control, and I was talking to him, and I was like, hey man, where do you recommend that we put these pumps? And he said there's 2 different locations that we can put these pumps. The first location is obviously what you see here on the inside of the fender, right behind the fender. The second location is underneath the car, which I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of underneath the car or anywhere underneath the car because there's just too much stuff that could hit a pump like this and break a pump. So we definitely don't want to do that. So what I decided was, okay, we're going to size things up and we'll mount it here. Now, there's some things that you got to know before you do this. You can't just mount this pump anywhere you want. Not a good idea, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. But you know, there's a specific location, and this is the location. If you're looking at the side of the car, there's the bubble that comes out in the door here. You want this bottle about the middle of that bubble is where you want it. The other good way of telling where you can mount this thing is if you look at this little rib here, this rib, you can put 2 of the bolts up top, 2 of the bolts at the bottom, but you want the bottom bolts to be as high up on this rib as possible. And these are self-tapping screws, so they just sit in there and it's secure. Now, the reason why you want it in this location and nowhere else is because, I don't know if you guys can see that. I guess you can. But you can see you need to have that in the right location to be behind the fender. And basically that fender is going to come out like this and go back in again. And as you can see, that pump is extremely close at the bottom, but it's not at the top. Now it will clear down here. We know that for a fact. We've already checked it. But we know we needed enough on the top. And that's why, especially with this little bolt that comes out, we needed that extra space right here. So, you know, basically if you'd mount it down below, you can see that that pump would be sticking out about there, and you'd be in the crease of the door and of the crease of the fender, obviously, and it would not fit. So for anybody doing one of these, make sure you mount it exactly like this, or it will not fit. You will run into issues. Now, the nice thing about alky control is this is where the old washer pump was sitting in here like so, which we will not be using this at all at this point in time. We do have a little reservoir bottle. We're going to make a bracket for it later on and shove this all up in here and run a hose to it so he can have his windshield washer fluid again, which will be cool. But we're going to be using his washer fluid tank as his meth bottle, and as of right now we have it filled up to about here with water. As you can see, we're looking for any leak, strips, and errors. We tapped in down here on the side, which is not leaking, and then we have our level sensor right above that. So the level sensor sits here, the feed sits here, the supply line going into the pump sits here. Now obviously when this level sensor gets to about here, the level light will come on, which is a little red light that we're going to place inside the dash area. And he'll have a little bit of time before he has to top it off, but it would be a good recommendation that when that light comes on, that this customer does top this meth bottle off for sure. Other thing they send is they send this nice little plug. That way, where this originally was sitting inside of here, you don't have to worry about trying to fill that in with plastic weld or some sort of a rubber plug. They actually give you this really nice brass fitting plug with a new seal that goes in the bottom original hole, and it keeps it, you know, plugged. It hasn't leaked. It's nice and dry underneath, all that fun stuff. So the only thing that we got left on this is we have to obviously put this to a ground, which we'll find a ground for that, no big deal. And then we have a plug back here, which you might be able to see, you might be able to not see. Here we go. This is our activation plug, and then we have our harness right here that plugs into that plug. So we're going to run that behind the firewall, into the firewall area and around the back of the motor, and get it to that plug there. And that's pretty much the harness part that needs to be figured out. It's not that big of a deal. It's just one little wire line setup. We'll tuck it down. We'll probably end up running it up into this hole here where we ran our supply line coming out of our meth pump. So that should be good to go. I was thinking about putting the ground here maybe for the fender, but we're probably going to just take this and extend it and, you know, probably take it to a ground up in the engine bay. That way this pump has a very, very good ground. The only sucky part is if this pump fails or there's something wrong with it, or if this thing starts leaking, you have to take the entire fender back off to deal with it. It's not that bad of a job. Mitch was the one that took the fender off. Mitchell, how long do you think that fender took to take off?
15-20 minutes.
15-20 minutes. Was that including taking out the headlight and everything as well?
Yes, the headlight's pretty easily mounted.
Okay.
3 bolts.
And obviously you have to take the headlight out in order to get the fender off as well.
Yep.
And it's just a few screws. You have some mounting screws up here, right there. You have were these hard to get to?
The one there was a little bit tricky to get to.
And this one up top?
That one inside the door.
And this one was kind of
outside. It was set up backwards just so you can't steal the fender.
You don't want to steal the fender,
no,
definitely.
And
then you just have these pop rivets down here that I'm assuming just pop out, right?
Yep, they pop
out. And then you have 2 bolts down here as well.
Yes, and 2 right here.
And you have 2 up here as well.
Yep.
You guys can see there is a few bolts that hold that fender in place, as well as the headlight too, because as you guys can see over here, the headlight is mounted in one location to the actual fender itself. And you will have to take that inner liner out to get to all those other bolts and stuff too. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start wiring this thing up. We're gonna get the fender back on, hopefully today, right Mitch?
Yep.
Okay, good day. But we're gonna get to work. We're gonna do some wiring and we'll show you what we have. We have our pump wired up. We have the wire going up through here. We're gonna tuck this all away. Eventually, you just want to check to make sure the pump is working. We have a good ground right here for the pump, nice and close. You can actually put it there, it'll work just fine. And good old Mitchell man.
Oh yeah.
Has this guy right here. So I was gonna say, Mitch, if you want to bring it over here.
Sure.
That way we can see it. We do have a little bit of water in the tank. So we have our alky controller all the way turned up. We're eventually gonna put it in the glove box here, but we just wanna see if this works. We wanna make sure the electronics work and everything's good. And you ready, buddy?
I'm ready.
I hear a pump running.
I hear fluid.
You hear fluid? Oh my God. Oh, we might as well drain it out of there then.
You see that? That's awesome.
So the nice thing is we have pump action. We know the pump works. Do you see any leaks down there by any chance? Anything leaking or?
No sir. Everything looks like it.
Everything looks dry?
Yep. We're still pumping like a champ here.
Yeah. Let me know when she's close to empty, bud.
So we're getting down there now.
This is good. This is good news.
Okay.
So we're gonna empty the little bit of water that we have in it.
There it is. That's good.
Is that it?
Yep.
We emptied a little bit of water that we have in it. I'm gonna turn the car off. All right, vehicle's off. Close the door. Nice. All right, so we pretty much have this empty for the most part. Doesn't look like we have any leaks, which are good. Everything's tight. This line's nice and tight. That line's nice and tight. And I think we're good to go. So the last thing we got to do is plug this sensor, and we're going to run these wires behind here up into here and just let them hang for right now. We're going to feed it through a hole in the firewall, and then we'll wire that up. We'll do the interior wire probably a little bit later. But now that we know the pump is working and everything's good and not leaking, I can have good old Mitch here reassemble this entire fender setup, get the fender well in. We can now put the bumper back on, and that should all be done today, which is pretty awesome. And then tomorrow morning we'll come in here. I'll finish up touches? Yeah, final touches. I'll finish wiring up the there's not really that much to wire up. It's just mounting everything and getting it out of the way. Other than that, and then off to the dyno. So this should be pretty cool, guys. I'm very excited about getting this car out of my shop, getting into the dyno. The customer's really excited about the dyno. So yeah, we still got to wire up the MAF too. So we do have to still wire this up, which I'll do tomorrow, or maybe tonight. I'll do it tonight or something, but this should be pretty simple. It comes with full instructions, tells you where everything goes, so that's okay. So yeah, guys, that, and we got to mount the nozzles, and that's it. Very simple setup, very easy setup. The worst part about this entire job is literally pulling the fender off and the bumper to get the meth pump mounted. That's the worst part of this entire job. Other than that, everything else is just running lines and hooking everything up to power and grounds. But yeah, other than that, I think that's good.
Here we go.
I think that's good. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Dyno numbers coming soon. Should be pretty interesting. Like usual, subscribe. Instagram, Diablo From The Racing. Facebook is also Diablo From The Racing. Deuces, guys.